So I guess my point to that whole story about having a reputation is, once you have a reputation, you can sort of afford to have your prices up a bit higher. But it's getting there. And for me, that takes a lot of hard work, and it takes consistency and dedication to your practice. And people will see that. I believe that. So, you know, a lot of us unfortunately don't have famous painting fathers, father painters or mother painters or cousin painters or whatever. So a lot of us just have to do it the hard way. The good way, the hard way. And, you know, it just takes time to build up that reputation. Like I said, my work sticks out. No one does what I do in my area. And at my art fairs, a lot of people are like freaked out by my range of different stuff. I think some of the artists are a little bit, maybe even a bit intimidated by the amount of stuff that I do. And every year I seem to have something new and something different. You know, I'm trying to look for something that I think, well, I'm always trying to push myself, as you know, as you guys know, and I'm always trying to see what works for me, and all my experimentations, you know, produce all of this different stuff. A lot of it's not different, a lot of it's just the same, repeated, but I'm always just trying to improve. Yeah, building that reputation doesn't happen overnight. It takes a few years to get there. So, you know, you also got to take into consideration how long does it take you to create the piece of artwork. If you're just producing, you know, an artwork in a couple of hours, then once again, I don't think that you can expect to throw huge amounts of work on it, huge amounts of money on it, unless of course obviously that you've got a reputation and you can do that, or if you and then again, each work is individual, isn't it? Each work has its own unique feature that will work for it. Like some works you can get more money for because of the visual appeal. Each work is like I said, is an individual, and one work may be better than another, and you know, you might have a few outstanding pieces. But I've got a I don't know, a handful now of works which I'm not selling because what my gallery wants to sell them for me is too cheap for what I think their visual appeal is, for what they look visually, and I'm not selling them. I'm hanging on to them to when I can get to a point where I feel that I'm going to sell them for what I think they're worth visually, and if I don't get that, then I'm not going to sell them at all. They'll just stay in my collection, because these are the works that I think are important for many reasons, not just for how they look visually, but how they've actually come into fruition. And I'm looking at them as some important teachers in my development, and without those works they wouldn't have led me on to different stuff. Hear the seagulls? The sea's just down, well, the fjord is just down there. There's lots of seagulls that fly around. Yeah, so, you know, sometimes you've got to hang on to those works which you feel are milestones in your career, because you never know. I mean, I live in the middle of nowhere, like I said, and you know, I don't expect to get anywhere huge. Well, I'm going to try and get my work out and exhibit in other countries. I mean, I'm selling my work overseas now, and that, but what I'm saying is to exhibit and travel and workshop in other countries. I mean, that's my ultimate aim, and we all need to have goals. But I'm saving those works for where I can actually exhibit them in places where I know people can appreciate them, and I think that's what you got to bear that in mind as well. So you know, it's just such a hard thing to decide about pricing your work, but you need to start somewhere. So just start with a price, a base price for all of your works if you're starting out, and then look around at what other artists are selling, and you know, gauge it. I had no clue when I first came to Norway about how much I should sell, and I know at the first art market that I went to, I just was looking at all the other artists and what they were selling their work, and I didn't put my prices on the artwork until the actual day, because I wanted to see what other people were selling. So I ran around and checked around what they were selling, and then I put my base price on the works. Took into consideration how many hours I'd probably spent, although I don't tend to do that as much anymore, because you know, there's so many artists, there's so many formulas out there about, you know, you have an hourly rate, and then you work out how many hours you've spent creating that painting, and then, you know, you multiply it by 3, then you've got to work out what tax you have to pay on that if you're paying tax to the government. Oh, but I find that hourly thing really, because I find it really hard, because some hours might be more productive than others, and yeah, I'd rather judge the work as a complete finished work on its value rather than the amount of time that I've put into it. Now I know a lot of people probably aren't going to agree with that, but that's, for me, it's, at the end of the day, the buyer isn't worried about how many hours you took creating the artwork, or the pain and the suffrage that you went through, or the joy and the happiness that you went through to create it. At the end of the day, they're looking at what they see in front of them. Does it appeal to them, you know, for what reasons? And what does it mean, maybe? They don't care about, honestly, how long it took you to make. So for me, that's how I look at it. I look at it as if I was buying, I look at my own work as if I was buying it. And what do I think it is worth? And what do I think I would pay for it if I was looking at it just for its aesthetic value? That's how I sort of judge what I think a work is worth. But, you know, not everyone's going to agree with me on that, and that's fine, because we all have our own structures and how things work out. Anyway, I hope you've got some idea of maybe pricing your work. I don't know if my rambles have actually answered your question at all, but I think it's a hard topic and a hard thing to work out. But the more years that you do it, well, see, I know where I fit now in my area in terms of my value. And the thing is, you know, my gallery expects me to charge one price, and see, that's another thing you could take into consideration if you're with a gallery. You know, I sell my work online as well, so I mean, I've got to take that into consideration. You've got to take into shipping, and you know, all of this sort of stuff, all this other stuff you've got to take into consideration. But yeah, I hope that's helped, and if not, well, what can I say? I can say later. Alright, have a good day, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye. Bye. Later.